Okay, it's been a little while. We've been extremely busy. We had the holidays, but now we're back with the Daytrpp'N podcast. I'm your host, Rudy Montijo. And as always, we're back in the Merc Bar in the back room, which is a really cool setting. If you're ever in town in Phoenix, in the Billboard area, great place to meet a friend, grab a drink. Thank you to Rick Phillips, to Peter Hearn for letting us host here at the Merc Bar. Please come check it out. It's an amazing spot. Today we have another amazing guest, as they all are, and unique in their own way. This is Dr. Hayley Avino. She comes with us. She just joined the Daytryp team. We're super excited to have her. She has a wealth of knowledge from a medical standpoint, a holistic standpoint. She recently did ketamine therapy at Daytryp Health, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But wanted to get you, some more information about who she is and what she can do to help you heal. So Hayley, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I'm pumped.
So tell me a little about yourself.
So I had a feeling you were going to ask this question, and I think that sometimes healthcare professionals in general have a really difficult time separating our professional self. So I'd like to ask you, would you like to know a little bit about me personally and my upbringing?
Yeah, so this is a unique interview in the sense that you're part of the Daytryp team. We haven't had a lot of interaction yet. It's been fairly new, so I don't really know you that well as a person yet. So yeah, give us a brief, who you are as a person, how you got into medicine, and then to the holistic side. Let's chat about it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So my name's Dr. Hayley Avino. I'm a doctor of nursing practice, family nurse practitioner. That's my professional designation. But originally I'm born and raised in Crown Point, Indiana, which is, a lot of people call it the region. We're about 35 minutes outside of Chicago, so a lot of times instead of saying I'm from Northwest Indiana, I actually say I'm from Chicago.
How do people from Chicago feel about that?
I think it's okay because we're Bears fans, Cubs or Sox fans, Blackhawks fans, pretty much everybody that is from my hometown. I mean, literally, it's 15, 20 minutes and you're across the border into Illinois. It's a very unique city.
Hold on 1 second.
It's okay.
He'll edit that out.
Lots of construction going on.
And yeah, so I apologize if there were some beeps and stuff. There's some construction outside the window here, so.
It's all good. It's all good.
So Crown Point, Indiana.
Yeah, so born and raised in super small town Crown Point, Indiana, one of the most amazing places to be brought up, but I remember recognizing at a very early age that I wanted to get the heck out of there. So. Yeah. I'm one of 5. I'm right in the middle. So I have an older sister. She's in her early 40s. I have an older brother that people mistakenly think is my twin a lot. He's just a few years older than me, in his mid-30s.
He has long curly hair.
He does. Now he does. Yeah. I always say he steals his messy bun from me and stuff like that. But yeah, a lot of people mistake us for each other from the back and all of that. So it's so funny. Me and him I'm really close with all of my siblings, but Jeremy and I in particular seem to have a unique bond. And then I'm in my early 30s, and I actually have a younger brother and younger sister who are in their early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get out? How did you get out to Arizona?
So, like I alluded to earlier, I just remember from a very young age that I always felt different back home, and I just knew that there was something else out there for me. Besides my hometown, not a lot of people get out. I feel like it's always like a big deal when I come home because nobody leaves my hometown. Yeah. And so I actually was very interested in going to Arizona State University for my undergraduate. I know you're a U of A fan.
I'm a Wildcat. You're describing going back. It's like a Hallmark movie, like big city girl goes back to Crown Point, Indiana. But yeah, I'm a Wildcat.
Yeah, but I started coming out here when I was 15, 16, visiting my aunt for spring break. She was a snowbird here at the time, and I absolutely fell in love with the desert. And this is where I really imagined myself. So I looked into going to Arizona State University. I lived with my dad growing up in my teenage years, and he was the one that was going to really support me going to college. And so I talked to him about it, and I actually had a full ride to any school in Indiana that I wanted to attend. And so Dad's doing what dads do best. Yeah. He was like, that's fine if you want to go ahead, but you're on your own.
Yeah.
Right? So I was in between wanting to either go become a vet or become a nurse. And again, Dad steps in and really encouraged me to go become a nurse. Nurses have a ton of independence and autonomy, and you're just setting yourself up for a lifelong career in a lot of different environments and modalities. There's just so much opportunity in nursing, as you know, because you work in healthcare as well. And
Right.
so I decided to stay in Indiana, and I went to Ball State University. There's four
Cardinals.
different, yeah, Cardinals. There's four or five state schools. I chose Ball State University. It wasn't too small and it wasn't too big like Purdue or IU. It was just right for me. And so I did grow up doing a ton of sports in high school. I was on the dance team, and I was also a track athlete. I did hurdles, 100, 400, 2x2,
Wow.
2x4. So loved track, loved dance, basketball, softball, soccer. Those things weren't really my jam. It was track and dance for sure. And so decided to go to Ball State. I actually danced my first year of college as well. And then when sports kind of fell to the side and I started to pour everything I had into my academic accolades, I just wanted to be the best at that instead.
Good.
So I still had getting out of Indiana on my mind. So I graduated in 3 years instead of 4 from Ball State University. I just wanted to get the heck out of there. Got a couple years of nursing experience in my hometown, which happened to be right up against Gary, Indiana. So I did most of my nursing, couple years of experience in the ER immediately.
Birthplace of Michael Jackson.
Yes, birthplace of Michael Jackson, but very, very high acuity emergency room where I worked. Tons of gang violence, really low socioeconomic status, a lot of chronic health issues.
MVWs, GSWs.
Yes. I saw more trauma, I think, in my first 2 years of nursing experience that I didn't really see the need to see it again.
So you've got a lot of trauma background in nursing.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're an RN, and then you go get your master's, and then you go on to becoming a DNP.
So 2 years, then I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm going to become a travel nurse. So I actually lived in Portland, Oregon for about a year. My cousin lives in Bend, so that was amazing, kind of having family close. Then I went up to Seattle for a year, and then in end of 2015, beginning of 2016, I landed here in Arizona on a travel assignment.
Okay.
And I had no intention of staying. This was going to be a short-term thing. My dad, again, dads know best. He's like, Hayley, if you go to Arizona, you're probably going to stay. And I was like, no, Dad, I'm going to leave. I got done with my 3-month contract, and they asked me to re-up my contract. I said yes. I made a ton of friends here. I was going to a CrossFit gym that I absolutely loved. I started dating the individual that's now my husband, and November of late 2016 came around, and I was like, okay, well, I think I'm just going to end up staying. So I took a full-time position at Honor Health. There's a few different Honor Health facilities. I was working at the Level 1 Trauma Center in Old Town Scottsdale, and I was working alongside a nurse practitioner named Dr. Danke, Nancy Danke. And she just sat next to me one night. I was on night shift, and she was like, I really think that you should go back to school for your nurse practitioner. I think you have a ton of skills, and you are of a sound mind. You're really great when it comes to critical thinking. I think you'd be an excellent provider. And so she encouraged me. She was actually a professor at ASU. So there was that long ago dream of attending ASU. I applied for my doctorate, and I got in, and
here you are.
Here I am. So I started my DNP in 2018, and I graduated in May of 2021 with my Doctor of Nursing Practice, Family Nurse Practitioner.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of practitioners, I know you're very health conscious. You know, you work out, you watch what you eat, you meal prep, as I've seen. A lot of Western, they write prescriptions. That's not your philosophy, all the time. There's a place for it, but you have a lot of holistic background in philosophy that goes along with your medical knowledge. Is that right?
Yeah.
So tell me how that came to be. I think a lot of our audience, if they're watching this, they're more in tune to trying to get away from that. Sure. We have a lot of people, we have psych MPs and we have MDs on staff that want to taper off their medication and really go a route that's not going to be a Band-Aid for their symptom to really get to the root. And that's something that you really believe in, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me about that.
Yeah, so going back to growing up in the Midwest in Indiana, I mean, everybody there, I'm going to say everybody, is wildly unhealthy. From the water they drink, to the products they put on their body, to the food that they're ingesting, tons of substance use disorder. even the thoughts, right? And so I remember I was like 8 years old and started becoming really health conscious. I started running around the block.
At 8 years old, you started exercising?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I started like
voluntarily?
Yeah, I started running around my block and doing sit-ups and watching Martha Stewart was really the only cooking show on TV, and I started watching Martha Stewart and started developing like my own recipes and started to cook more for myself. Growing up in the Midwest, my mom wasn't around a ton between my earlier years, so we ate a lot of TV dinners and, you know, lived on food stamps and stuff like that. So it was challenging, right? And that's the blueprint that you're setting. So I remember being a little bit bigger than my siblings as well. My older brother and older sister were super athletic, and I wasn't enrolled in any sports or anything like that. So I just had to do it myself. And so, I mean, honestly, when I think about it, it goes all the way back to then. And I had the opportunity to spend a ton of time with my aunt, who's one of my biggest role models, and she was super health conscious. I think I had my first green juice when I was like 9 years old, and all of that. She would take me to yoga and have all these great meals. So I really got interested in it back then. Becoming a nurse, nurses naturally have a holistic mindset. We're not only,
how is that?
We're just not only thinking of your diagnosis and your treatment, we're thinking about different opportunities that we can positively impact your outcomes.
So when you're looking at a patient, it's not about just how I could fix it, it's kind of more of a environmental context too.
Yeah.
So what other things are contributing to why you're feeling or experiencing these symptoms, and how do we resolve that as well from a whole,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, from the patient themselves to the family sitting in the room to the resources that they're going to have when they go home, nurses are thinking of, okay, what caused this, right? How did this originally develop? How can I set this person up for success when they go home? And that's the company that you keep, the support that you have at home, the food that you're going to put in your body, your sunlight exposure, your bedding, hygiene.
We obviously believe in a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. I deal with a lot of clients and they have families, so sometimes people come in for treatment, but the environment they're going back to is not ideal. And so it really can, you know, put up a barrier for their success. It's not impossible, it's just more challenging.
For sure.
That being said, how do you address that? And I think people would want to understand that because a lot of people are in that situation. They want to get help, but so-and-so is kind of blocking them or they're not really on board with their own issues. How do you approach that, the whole familial aspect of it without offending the entire family and getting them on the defense? I want to just kind of pull everything back.
Listening. You know, motivational interviewing, I'm really big on that. And you are too, I'm sure, coming from, you know, a counseling behavioral health background, just really listening, motivational interview cues, meeting that individual where they're at. So yeah, you know, maybe they have a hoarding situation at home. Can we identify or figure out a part of the home that we can send this patient back to that's going to be a little bit more clean than the other parts of the home, even if it's literally blocking off a 10 by 12 space.
So listening, some positive reinforcement, and then some obtainable solutions.
Yeah, I mean, so many times in the traditional healthcare model, it's one extreme to the other. We're not meeting our patients where they're at, and that's where we're missing the mark.
Right.
If you just took time, which not a lot of us have, to listen to these individuals, to listen to their family, they're going to tell you everything that you need to know, and you're not even going to even have to ask any questions.
100%. It's well said. You know, I'm not going to even add anything to that. And it's important too. I think that you give people small goals. Otherwise, people get overwhelmed and discouraged. If they have something they can't really accomplish, you know, we always forget. If we're at a certain point in our life, we forget where we started very quickly.
Yeah.
So if we can bring ourselves back to the point where we needed help, that conveys to them with some patience and empathy to give them a small goal they can feel good about that they're achieving and kind of build from that.
And nurses in general, I mean, I am in love with our curriculum. I'm biased because I'm a nurse practitioner. MDs have different bias, DOs, all of that, but we are trained in every single environment. We have community health rotations. We have hospital rotations.
I didn't know that, and that makes sense because we have a lot of nurses who work with us, and they are all very well-rounded. Alicia, Stephanie, and they really see that whole picture. So I didn't understand the training that goes behind that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're going into people's homes for community and home health.
Right, which is what we're doing for Sunset.
Right, and you don't even, I mean, when you're in the hospital, It's so sterile. It's so hustle and bustle and chaotic and, structured.
Is that why you have better bedside manner than Quinn? Just joking.
Quinn is amazing.
Quinn has great bedside manner.
I'm just going to say this. I come from the ER, so I feel like I can say this.
Yeah.
Okay, I love all of my ER physicians actually, but I just think ER physicians are a different breed. We just see ER physicians and nurses. I mean, it's like just camaraderie and teamwork. So I feel like we work together so well.
I'll tell you why I love and why Daytryp has several ER nurses, and our chief medical officer and medical director, Dr. Quinn Snyder, is from the ER.
Yeah.
Is in this field in mental health, it's important to be able to react with a decisive decision that's going to be appropriate for that patient. But you have to do that in a way that's not going to show that you're stressed out or thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So to picture a duck on the water, the duck underwater, they're moving their legs a million miles a minute, but up top, they're calm and steady. Mm-hmm. And that's what ER providers have to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And, first responders, EMS, firefighters,
Right.
EMTs, medics, police officers, ER physicians, ER providers, nurses, techs, we all work together very seamlessly because we are working together constantly and
Right.
Leaning on each other,
And that's very important for what we do, because in mental health, somebody already is coming in with some fear and anxiety, and you don't want to exacerbate that by showing that you're stressed out as well.
Right.
So being able to be calm, composed, and have that demeanor is going to only make them feel more comfortable, and safe, which is what Daytryp does very beautifully.
Oh yeah, I think you can feel energy radiating off of people, or at least I feel like I have that gift.
100%.
Personally. But, going back to my holistic, it really goes back to nursing school. I learned so much about different environments, and then you learn a lot about non-pharmaceutical interventions. This is drilled into you in nursing school, or at least it used to be. Granted, I'm 12 years out of nursing school.
Wow.
I began my healthcare career in 2009, so it's almost been 15 years now. That's insane.
It's a long time.
It's a long time, and I understand that healthcare and nursing school has changed, so I just want to speak from my journey. But non-pharmaceutical interventions, sociology, psychology is huge in nursing school, and so we were always finding ways that we could positively impact the patient's outcomes without needing a doctor's order, without needing a prescription. So this is essentially you're helping the patient help themselves through breathing techniques, through mindfulness, meditation, aromatherapy, sound. Nurses,
a lot of the things
I was
that
trained to bring those things into the room.
A lot of the things that we actually suggest and part of the integration at Daytryp and the retreats that we do at Birdsong and Weekend Trip.
Yeah. And I think for me personally, why I decided to become a nurse practitioner, I got very frustrated in that traditional model. Even in the emergency room, I would go over all of these things with a patient in the room to help them address their pain that they were having. A lot of times it's like somatic pain, right? Mm-hmm. We can't identify the cause. So I'd go over a lot with these patients, and then in comes the attending provider and writes them a prescription for oxycodone or Norco, and I disagree, and I felt like anything that I just said went out the window, because then they're given the easy way out, right? Not always. And I don't want to diminish people that are suffering and need those pain medications.
But there's other alternatives.
Right, like let's think about non-pharmaceutical
people could take that with a grain of salt and read between the lines, I hope.
Yeah.
But the reason why this is important, and I want to get to this before we actually get to the next part of the podcast, is so people understand, one, why you're a part of this team and your ideology, behind healthcare. That's really cohesive in alignment with what Daytryp's all about. Yeah. So jumping into that, we posted, an ad for a nurse practitioner. We were looking for somebody. Daytryp is psychedelic therapy. Right now it's ketamine because that's what's legal. Yeah. In the future, we're going to, provide psilocybin, MDMA, all the modalities of treatment. What drew you to want to apply and potentially work with Daytryp Health? So
I spent the last 2.5+ years building a functional medicine practice, running a functional medicine practice, and that's the role that I have been assuming. I was ready to pivot and make a change, and when I saw the ad for Daytryp, taking myself back a couple of years, when did you guys come I should know this. What, 2020, 2021?
No, we launched, took our first patient, I think, March of 2023.
Well,
So it's been a year now.
You've been on my radar, and I remember exploring Daytryp, and I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. I love what this organization is doing. So there was that blip. And I'm big about like universe moments, leading you exactly where you're meant to be. And so when I saw that pop up, I was like, wow, the universe is telling me something. And then I read a little bit more into it and thought that this was the perfect opportunity for me to provide the type of healing that I've always wanted to prescribe for my patients, right? Because a lot of it is, ketamine is unbecoming and accepting yourself without judgment and healing with compassion, in my personal opinion. I've done research on my own related to ketamine therapy. I would suggest it to my patients all the time in my office.
What kind of research can somebody do to educate themselves? Because a large portion of our target audience and population, they're looking for this as a last resort because other things have failed them. And so one of the main goals of the podcast and what we do in general is to educate and help remove some of that fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
So what kind of research can somebody do on their own to help educate themselves in regards to ketamine therapy?
Well, there's some great podcasts out there. Some of them can be overwhelming. Like Andrew Huberman has an excellent podcast, but it's about 2 hours long.
Very scientific as well. Hard to digest.
It is. I really love the podcast that you and Quinn put together. I'm biased, right? But I think that the way that Quinn describes ketamine and goes over some of the safety and application and some of the history, I mean, it's a very digestible, only 30 minutes long, and there's some humor alongside it.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's one of the better podcasts I've listened to. And again, I know I work here, but I feel like I don't have bias because I'm new to the team.
I appreciate that. So if you haven't watched it yet, you can find that on the podcast of Dr. Quinn Snyder. A ton of information, only about half an hour long. So if you want to do some research, and it's coming from an MD, an ER physician, it's not coming from me. So and it's going to have some more weight, so you can trust the information that you're getting.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a not a newer therapy, but it's becoming more common in society right now. I think we're really on the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this. So I was first exposed to this back in 2019, 2020, going through my DNP. One of my DNP colleagues, his name's Johnny. He's working at Betty Ford.
And you talked about ketamine therapy?
He did his whole doctoral quality improvement project exploring the use of ketamine combined with cognitive behavioral therapy, which for those of you that don't know is counseling.
Right.
And so he combined both of those modalities. He only had one patient in his study, in his quality improvement project, and her results were significant. And he, the way that he described it was the first time I'd ever heard it, and he described it as an oyster, opening slowly, and eventually you're getting to that pearl of wisdom. And just the way that he described it, and he had a lot of holistic training with yoga and substance use disorder, and he's an amazing person, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. I just loved his description, and I could tell that he was very passionate about it and saw profound healing in those that were able to explore it. And so that was my first exposure to it.
And that's the gold standard, is usually some type of interventional pharmaceutical, in this case psychedelic or ketamine, with psychotherapy and actions. And I talk about this a lot ad nauseum, but that's how transformation happens. And what ketamine does, very simply, is it lowers that barrier for change. So if you're having a tough time, if you're at a roadblock, if you're stagnant in life and just having a really difficult time getting unstuck, ketamine therapy makes it easier to implement positive, productive behaviors so you can really start changing your life and moving forward.
For sure.
And that's what that woman experienced.
Yeah. So the way that Johnny described it, it was just so peaceful, tranquil, beautiful, true healing. And then in my functional medicine training, I just want to touch on this for a second. You're hearing the term functional medicine and holistic and integrative thrown around a lot these days. I want to make sure that anybody that's listening, make sure that if they're going to somebody in functional medicine, that this person is board certified functional medicine or in training some sort of fellowship.
Board certification and fellowship is more training, so it's an advanced level to make sure that you really know what you're doing.
Yeah,
simply
for sure.
It's harder to get.
Yeah, it is, because my fellowship in general has been 3 years, and I've been going away for 3 months. Going away for 3 days every 3 months for that training, and I have to take an additional board.
Right.
I have to be board certified and all of that to officially say that I'm a functional medicine practitioner, right? Naturopathic doctors, obviously they go through naturopathic school and have that board certification. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on that for a second. Just for those of you that are looking for holistic modalities, make sure you are reading through that individual's credentials, because there's a lot of misinformation, bad information, people that don't have that additional training, and that can actually be dangerous. A lot of these things are very safe because they're holistic,
Right.
But they can be dangerous. So for listeners, don't listen to everything that you hear on Joe Rogan. Make sure you're working with a board certified practitioner in your area.
With anything, do your own research.
Yeah.
Be accountable for your own actions.
If I can't find somebody like where they went to school or what their background is, I'm automatically throwing up a red flag, and I want to see their CV or their resume.
Yeah.
It's just like
And then research
concerning.
that.
Yeah. But I thought yours and Quinn's podcast was great. Huberman is a lot to digest. I mean, I'm personally been in the healthcare field for 15 years, and I had to hit pause every 15 minutes to just absorb what I was hearing.
I
and
had
then
to Google some
there.
words for sure.
Yeah. And like research, right? So you want to make sure that if you are reading any sort of study, look for some things like peer review, meta-analysis, literature review. Don't just take what you're finding on the internet and consider that research, right? Let's find things that are in high-level professional journals.
So speaking on that, there's a wealth of information on Daytryp.
Yeah.
Like we tell you one thing, and then we back it up with the why behind it. So what I mean by that, if you go to our website, you can navigate towards, there's research and studies, New England Journal of Medicine, all these types of well-respected publications where the research has been done, the studies have been done to actually prove the efficacy. And I get a lot of people on social media who comment with things, and it's not that they don't, they're not ignorant, they're misinformed.
Right.
And so I try and just educate them about what it is. And yes, ketamine has a wide variety of uses. It's been around for a very long time. Like a lot of drugs, it can be used recreationally. We focus on the intentional use, therapeutically.
Yeah.
And there's all the research that backs up how it's used safely and what it can be used for effectively.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, if you ever have any questions or concerns, I think that our medical professionals, between myself, our other nurse practitioner, and then our chief medical officer, Quinn, we're going to answer any questions or any hesitation that you have during your medical intake. And I'm sure there's going to be some questions answered even before that when you just talk to our patient care coordinator beforehand. And
not only that, we go the extra mile, whereas we have a client right now who wants to get in for a retreat, but she doesn't have cardiac clearance. So we're requesting or at least information from her cardiologist because heart disease and types of things can be a contraindication for ketamine. So we really go the extra mile to make sure you're going to be safe. And if there's any kind of question about it, it's, I'm sorry, this isn't for you.
For sure.
And that's important that people understand is how much we do to ensure the safety of our patients.
And that was really what drew me into Daytrip the most, was safety is my number one concern for all of my patients. It always has been, it always will be. That's at the core of my values. And so when I met with Quinn for my interview, and then you came in to meet me too, that was so apparent. You guys have gone, if you haven't experienced Daytrip, I encourage you just to come in and ask for a tour. The small details matter, and safety has been taken to, the next level, in my opinion, at Daytrip, but you wouldn't, as a patient, you wouldn't even recognize that those nuances are in place because it's so homey feeling.
Right. So we're in a non-clinical setting. And Daytrip's office and the clinic where you actually receive treatment is very organic, very natural, very calming. But all the medical precautions are in place. You just don't see them. They're out of sight, but they're there, trust me. And everything is done on the up and up and above board. And Quinn and Stephanie do a great job of ensuring the medical safety. What I really try and do from a mental health perspective is make the distinction between guides, therapists, and to really ensure that the people that are going through treatment are getting the right support and care to deal with their disorders.
Right.
And I think we really pay a lot of attention to that and take a lot of care to make sure our patients are having good outcomes during their treatment and afterwards as well.
Yeah, and going back to your original point, I don't know, me and Quinn were busy the other day. I think I did 5 or 6 intakes the other day. And there was 2 people that we said no to. There was one individual that has profound medical history, and we needed labs within the last 3 months from her, and then we requested that she would get labs done within 48 hours of her first treatment. We also needed to review her medical history and her notes with her provider and her labs before we could definitively tell her, okay, you're good, you can schedule this treatment.
That's good. People want to hear that.
Yeah, so I mean, and it doesn't, like, you know, again, what attracted me to Daytrp is you guys are doing it for the right reasons. We're doing it for the right reasons. We're not going to accept just anybody and everybody. It's a non-insurance based practice, right? Obviously, there's a level of income or cost that needs to come in, but we're not afraid to say no because we have the patient's outcomes and best interest at mind. If you're always striving to do the right thing, then good things are going to happen to you.
And you made a good point here, and I want to address that. One of the complaints I see on social media is it's too expensive. Now, let me just explain to you why it costs what it does. And we're by far one of the least expensive places in the valley, if not the country, for the therapy we provide. Is this expensive to pay medical doctors and nurse practitioners, RNs, NPs, the insurance, to have all these things in place to ensure you're safe costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so we're not making a lot of money at all, but we're doing what we can to provide great treatment at what we feel is an affordable price.
For sure.
So that's why the cost is, you know, what it is.
And I can resonate because I was a COO too, right? So
Yeah.
this is mine and your wheelhouse where we're having to look at the bottom line, right? And I mean, the utilities, the mortgage or the rent,
Everything
the lawyer
that's involved,
fees,
lawyers,
everything.
Insurance, everything costs money, and
The water that we provide, the little snacks that we provide afterwards,
Yeah.
Laundry facilities.
The
I mean, there's just,
experience.
the experience. There's so many expenses that if you have not been a chief operating officer or running your own practice before, of course you don't know. And that's okay. We're not saying that you have to know those things, but just recognize that, you know, the individuals in these high level executive positions are trying their best to make sure that they have a margin, that they can continue to run this practice.
Well, I think
but we're
too,
not
if you
gouging anybody.
we're not gouging anybody at all,
No.
and we
see that,
we work
right?
with a lot of people
where we live
as well. But when you actually come in and do a Daytrp experience, you understand why. It's like if you go to a Motel 6 and then go stay at the Four Seasons or something, you understand where those extra dollars are going to by the experience that you receive.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that for a second too, if you don't mind. I had a few patients that were doing ketamine at home orally, and then I had individuals that were going to a ketamine infusion or intramuscular clinic, a lot like Daytrp, right? And I want to say, I know you and Quinn touched on this a little bit, their experiences were vastly different. I really feel like people were able to sit with the medicine with deeper intentions, deeper meaning, deeper impact with intramuscular or IV versus orally at home. I mean, you're a dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if your kids run in while you're under the influence of ketamine and you were
Well, just so we're clear, I would never do that at home.
Right, but there's people that would. There's people that do.
Right,
that's
it's hard.
Their circumstances, they have to,
it's
right?
their circumstances. I have,
and so it's like just setting that patient up for success. And I've heard of these other organizations, and I'm like, I mean, how much stress do some of us have in our home just from like, I need to do the laundry, I need to clean the dishes, I need to vacuum, I need to do all of these things.
Right.
And I think removing yourself from those environments and allowing somebody else to take care of you like we do at Daytrp just cultivates that experience
to curate
even
the
more.
proper setting.
Yeah, it's all about set and setting, right?
And then the guide helps curate the mental mindset.
Yeah, and again, I'm not dismissing. I know that those formulations and that type of application, that's the only way that these people can get that treatment. So I don't want to diminish it in any way, but I encourage those people when their contracts are up with these other organizations, come and give us a try at Daytrp, and
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the differences between your experience, because I've truly only heard negative experiences. Like, the only negative experiences that I've heard have been oral.
I hear things from clients that come in. I like just to focus on what we're doing,
right,
and just stay in our race and just keep our eyes, on our experience. Speaking of experiences, you've recently gone through ketamine therapy at Daytryp. This was your first time.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you thinking going into it? And then we'll talk about what you felt during and after.
So this is a huge season of change for me. So much to unpack during this podcast with you, but I can honestly say that since I was about 8 years old, I've just been in the fight of my life, just constantly trying to get ahead and move forward and better myself and succeed and take care of myself and achieve independence and autonomy, right? And so I feel like that's really the path that I've been on, and I've put so much pressure on myself. I'm my own toughest critic, to my own detriment. I experienced profound burnout last year in March to the point that, I was having a difficult time even in my evaluations and my assessments with my patients. I was making small little errors, like forgetting to order something and running out of something that I was supposed to give a patient, right? I wasn't sleeping well. I was having a multitude of physical symptoms as well. And that's really, I hired a mindset coach, and he really opened my eyes that my body was starting to shut down from being in this fight or flight for majority of my life, right? And I'm proud of how I was able to, use what I went through early on in my life as a catalyst to make sure that I never, was at risk of not succeeding or anything like that. But at some point, it all comes crashing down. And so, that's really when I saw, the opportunity with Daytryp, I was like, I need to make a change, and I think that this is it. And so my intentions when I did ketamine, I don't drink. I don't use any type of recreational drugs, and it's okay.
Including psychedelics,
nothing,
right? Yeah,
nothing.
So
I've
no
never done
mushrooms,
psychedelics ever in my life, never even as a teenager. We all do things as a teenager, right? Like I think I smoked marijuana a handful of times, and the last time I was like 15 years old, right? I don't drink. I don't like it.
Which a lot of people listening, they've never done anything before, so they want to hear what you have to say.
I'm very what is it? Straight edge. I'm super straight edge. Yes.
Yeah, me too.
And so I wasn't nervous. I have heard so many positive things, and I knew that if I was nervous or I was scared, I might bring that with me into my journey. And so I just went in it with an open heart, and my intention was to just let the medicine do its thing. And I really wanted the focus to be on me and healing, and as I mentioned earlier, kind of like unbecoming all of these things that have allowed me to get to where I am today, but I'm ready to let go.
Okay.
And so I started sitting with the medicine. First of all, Stephanie put on the most beautiful curated meditation for me, and it was all about change. And even the 15-second preview, I was getting emotional.
Was that the one with Dave Romanelli? Or a different one?
It was on Insight Timer.
Okay, so
somebody blonde it, Alicia blonde it, Stephanie blonde it, something like that. Fine, yeah. It was amazing, and Stephanie, it just meant so much to me that Stephanie chose that for me. And I was like, this is the experience that you get at Daytryp. Like, they're meeting you where you're at, and they know a little bit about what's going on in your personal life and how we can better help you. And she picked that just for me. And so about 8 minutes in, after my first, test dose, I felt the medicine start to kick in. I started to have a little bit of anxiety. I felt almost like a tingling sensation wash over me, almost like if your arm or your leg goes numb when you're like sitting on it for too long.
Right.
And I felt nystagmus, which is the rapid eye movement. And I was like, oh no, oh gosh, oh no, oh no, oh no. And I was like, you know what? It's starting to kick in. I just need to breathe. I just need to relax. So that's what I started doing.
You're in a safe place. You're being monitored.
Yeah.
Somebody's there.
Yeah. And I was like, I can decline this second dose if I don't want to. But then Stephanie tapped me on the shoulder and my music started to kick in. And I was like, let's go.
Yes.
Let's go. And so I just let Stephanie give me my second dose, which it was my first time. So it was a low dose. I think I got 30 milligrams total.
Okay.
And really, I just let the medicine take over. I intentionally chose not to resist it whatsoever. A lot of people describe having an out-of-body experience. I know at any point, if I wanted to, I could have reached up and taken off my headphones and removed my eye mask if I wanted to, but I intentionally chose not to. I decided to sit with the medicine and just take it wherever it wanted to take me. I really focused on my breath and my heartbeat, and I had the most incredible, powerful, gentle, beautiful journey. It was amazing.
It's very gentle, isn't it?
It was so gentle, and it was the coolest thing about my journey was that I kind of went in with those intentions that I really want to do this healing for me and myself, and I was the only person in my journey.
Wow.
Nobody else came to me. There were no other thoughts. I was just totally in tune with myself, and we could unpack my journey for like 30 minutes, but the two takeaways that I have is that early on, within about, I don't know, you have no sense of time, but I had a profound feeling of heaviness at the very beginning, just pressure, always having to show up, having to take care of my family, take care of my friends, financially pay for everything, succeed, straight A's, doctor, always having to be on.
Yeah.
And I remember having the feeling of, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just started crying. And I physically started crying.
An emotional release.
An emotional release. I remember having to put my hand on my chest because I physically felt like my heart was breaking, because I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just let it release and let it go. And then for those that have done ketamine before, I climbed out of a chimney. And then I just was breathing. And then the next time I went on a train in my journey, ended up in the exact same spot where I was when I had that original release.
Wow.
But this time I had an overwhelming sense of peace, contentment, calm, not having to be anywhere, not having to do anything, not having to like pay for anything or, puff my chest and talk about what I do or anything like that, not sell myself. And for the first time in my entire existence, and I'm 32, I have been chasing since I was a little girl the feeling of true peace and content, and I've never felt it, but I did.
Wow.
And so then I started crying, because then I was like, this is what I've been searching for my entire life. I finally felt it.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing, and I have just been like sitting with that feeling ever since, and like that's really my goal in 2024 and moving forward for my professional career. Like, I don't want to continue jeopardizing my mental health at the sake of
anything.
Right? I want to start putting myself first, and I feel like that journey that I took really made that clear, that I need to start showing up for myself, because as a healer, as a healthcare provider, I will sacrifice myself to save you. At the cost of my own health, at the cost of my own, contemplating my life. There's been a few times in my career that I have.
Wow. That's a beautiful story.
It was amazing.
Thank you for sharing that.
Amazing. And if anybody has any questions, I have notes, I have pictures. I was in Monument Valley to start with, surrounded by stars, and the mountains were illuminated with the glow. It was amazing.
I love hearing it, because I've done it, quite a few times now, and it's just a beautiful experience. Like, you get to the point where you find your right dosage, your sweet spot. I don't know if you're gonna go up next time or what, but eventually you'll find that, and then you start to heal.
Yeah.
You start to process things, and then it's in a very enjoyable experience. It's different every time.
Mm-hmm.
You learn so much, but it's not as scary and dark as what people think it is.
Yeah, and that would be my advice to everybody else too, is don't hold on too tightly to your expectations or your intentions, because the medicine is going to do what it needs to do for you. And
psychedelics in general and ketamine, like, they just have a way of knowing where to go.
Yeah.
You can't explain it, but they do.
It was so peaceful, and the way that we call them journeys, that's literally, I was on a train multiple times throughout this, and it was just so amazing. And my dad's super strict, but I talked to him about it.
Yeah.
And I sent him your guys' podcast, and he's been so supportive of me.
You said Dad approved.
Yeah, and my brother's in recovery from substance use disorder. I almost lost him many times, and I dedicated my entire doctoral research towards helping people prevent relapse from substance use disorder. So I made sure that he was okay with it before I went on this journey too, because he's so important to me. My family is important to me. I don't want to do something that violates, something that's going to make them upset or uncomfortable or something like that. But I know myself, and I'm just really ready to tap into this healing era of Hayley. And this was the type of medicine that the type of healing that I've always wanted to give to people. and now I've been on the other side and I was able to receive it, and I can't wait to do it again. You know, I go to counseling as well regularly, so I do have those modalities in place, and yeah, I would really like to do the official protocol, which is the 6 treatments over 3 weeks.
Well,
but you know, we'll figure things out. And
one of the benefits of our employees that we give them is we give them free ketamine treatment. You know, we are a big believer of mental health. If somebody says I can only work these days, I need to, you know, we want to support that, and we want to support you on your healing. So whatever we can do for that, we're all for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been amazing. I mean, my husband picked me up, and he was so excited because he knows, like.
Is he gonna come in?
No, he's a first responder, so I'd love for him to.
Yeah.
He's a captain, and I'd love for him to. We just met with the 100 Club, which was really cool. It seems like they're doing a lot of really meaningful work when it comes to ketamine-assisted therapy for first responders. So hopefully that, you know, that field will become more open-minded, and we'll start seeing more firefighters and police officers and nurses.
I think we will. We already see a lot right now.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do is they're allocate resources to help pay for it for them, so it's not an out-of-pocket expense to them.
Yeah, and you know, my husband and I just have a different thought process when it comes to the food that we eat and some of the other things that we do for our health. Like, we don't take a ton of trips because we'd rather invest in the food that we're ingesting, the gym membership, the healing, the massages, you know, these things that really make us feel good from the inside out. And I think hopefully people will start approaching ketamine in the same way. Like, this is a huge investment for you. Not huge, but you know, this might be an investment for you.
But if this is going to set you up, there's an ROI on it. Like, people always want to talk about that, and then we'll wrap this up here. But investing in yourself is going to have an ROI monetarily, mentally, emotionally, all these things. So taking a little bit, and it's not a huge, you know, I say that subjectively depending on how much money somebody has, but you know, $400 or $500 for a treatment to get these rewards that could bring a lot more peace and happiness and help you actually, you know, maybe earn more is worth it. I mean, especially if you've been suffering for so long.
I went 32 years without ever feeling peace in my life, and now I felt it.
After one session, you had an amazing and profound experience.
And I have felt refreshed, energized, calmer, less irritable, more patient since. And I mean, it's been, I think, almost 2 weeks since my last treatment, or 10 days, I don't even remember, but the durability of it for me after my first session, it's like, I will never forget my experience, ever.
Which is amazing. The more you do it and the frequency, it's durable, meaning it lasts longer, and it's accumulative, so it builds up. So the more you can do, like 3 or 6 sessions, the longer it's going to last and have that effect.
But that instant relief, you know, was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. It's been amazing learning, you know, about your history, where you come from, and just your belief in all of this, and really about your experience. And I didn't understand, or I didn't know, like, you were going through that for so long, and to have that relief just makes me feel really good as somebody who helps operate a business, that I was able to help you. And then to have you part of our team feels really amazing. Like, we're in alignment, and really excited about that relationship as well.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and thank you guys so much for taking the opportunity on me, and I'm so excited to be part of the Daytrp team and whatever else is coming in my career. I feel like I have the tools to move forward with wherever that's going to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Dr. Hayley Avino, thank you, Rick Phillips and the Merc Bar, for hosting. We'll see you next time. We have Mark Herman coming back on, who's our firefighter who went through his 3 treatments. We talked to him beforehand. We're going to talk to him after his treatments to see, you know, how it's positively affected his life. So make sure you guys watch that one. We'll see you next time. Thank you.